There. Everyone's really open and they're like going to be wanting a friend because no one wants to be lonely in college.
I'm very excited just to meet new people, just get out there, get out of my comfort zone.
What drew me to the colleges honestly was like the vibe that they gave off.
The environment, the atmosphere of the campus, the students, the classes.
I had kind of a list of what I wanted. Like I wanted a traditional type of school. You know, I wanted to be on the West Coast. I wanted a spirited school. I wanted a school that was good specifically for my major. For the past few years, I've been wanting to be a photojournalist.
I'm really interested in kind of the marine sciences and I guess ecology and evolution and how systems work all together.
It can be hard to get a job if you don't go to college.
Mostly I'm hoping to get an education that's like good enough that I can get like a really good job.
I hope to just be able to, I guess, be prepared for the job after college.
Dream job for me, I don't know, I kind of want to work at a company like Google or SpaceX or something, somewhere where like my work is super interesting and also, I mean, high paying.
I don't really have a dream job or a set path I want to go down. I mean, ideally like super easy job, pays a lot of money, it's fun to do. I just want to be financially safe.
The cost is really important to me because it's definitely, I'm going to use it as a deciding factor.
I'm definitely concerned about how I'm going to pay for college. It's getting pretty pricey.
Some of the colleges are just really expensive, so I wouldn't even apply to them knowing I probably wouldn't be able to afford them.
I'm worried about paying for college in the sense that I feel like to get a job now you need to go to grad school.
A bachelor's degree is the new high school degree in today's working world.
Well, that's what everyone says, and I don't know if my parents are paying for me to go to a 4-year college, but how am I ever going to afford to go to grad school?
I applied to, I'd say, about 11 schools, and I ended up not getting into most of them.
So overall I applied to 15 schools. I did not get into any of my top choices.
I was pretty much in the ballpark for Chapman University and I got waitlisted. I know that the whole college system is a little off, like it's kind of weird.
It was sort of frustrating but surprising, like how many schools I didn't get into.
My grades and test scores were pretty at or above the average, I guess, for the schools, but I was just not accepted.
Schools where I had like an average GPA that was higher than their average, and testing scores that were higher than their like average testing scores for admits. I didn't get into like a few of those schools.
I feel completely unprepared to go to college.
The classes in high school may have not prepared me for college as well as they could have or really should have.
I don't know what to expect. I didn't even know that I was supposed to apply for housing, and then I found out and I was like, oh my gosh, like if I didn't even know that, what am I missing here? So I feel like there's so much that I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to apply for classes or how to like get my courses. I feel, yeah, completely unprepared.
It was definitely a lot of stuff, and it was pretty complicated.
I feel like, yes, it is worth it, but I feel like there's no evidence that I know of. It's just what everyone has always told me, like it pays for itself eventually. So I guess I have no first-hand knowledge, but I'm just, what everyone says, I guess it does.
Thanks for that warm introduction. Hi, I'm Dan Rosensweig, CEO of Chegg. Just want to take a brief minute. Where's Mike Mo? I saw him here earlier. For those of you who don't know, a close friend of Mike, mentor to Mike, board of GSV, close friend to mine, to Chegg, personal mentor to me, Bill Campbell passed away this morning. For those of you who know him, it's sort of a devastating day. Bill was the coach. For those of you who don't know him, he was an Ivy League football player, all Ivy, became the head football coach at Columbia, Boston College. Then his wife told him to get a job. And he worked for Kodak, found his way with John Scully out to Apple, and eventually became Steve Jobs' mentor. And on the board of Apple for 17 years, mentored Larry Page of Google, and Sergey right up to the end, and many of the people in Silicon Valley. And Bill's passion was education. And I'll never forget when I went in and asked him to mentor me. I said, Bill, I've had great success in my life, but I've never been great. You can make me great, and this job's too important not to be great at. Will you do it? And he came in and he met with my management team the first day, and he said, my name's Bill Campbell. I don't give shit about cash. I don't give a shit about equity. I like Dan's wife, and I like his daughters, and I can put up with Dan. So that's why I'm here. It's just got the call at 6:30 this morning, so if I feel a little bit out of sorts, it's because it wasn't surprising, but he's like a father to me and so many others in Silicon Valley, and I love him, and I know Mike feels the same way, and because Bill's on the board of GSV, and I think it's important to acknowledge it. So thank you for giving me that moment to just speak my piece on that. Now let's try to switch over to how screwed up these kids are. So for those of you who don't know Chegg, we get invited every year, very fortunately, from Mike. In fact, I remember when Mike and Deborah were first setting up GSV, they asked if I could come speak. And I said, well, I've been in the education space for exactly 5 weeks, so clearly I'm an expert, never having been in it. But he said, no, we're going to build this conference. The education industry needs a place for people to gather, needs to have enough substance and critical mass for venture companies and investors to begin to invest in this space, that this space is going to see an amazing transition over the next 10 years. We don't exactly know how, but you're an internet guy, you were at Yahoo, you were a Guitar Hero, that ought to be enough to fill the room. So I thought, all right, well, I'll do that. So what's the room? The room was the cafeteria at Arizona State University. And we had all of the cafeteria people and 5 other people. So however many years later, Deborah and Mike and their team have built this into easily the most important education conference at a time when education is becoming more important in ways that I don't think we ever imagined. We always knew education was important. We always knew education was the key to the future for so many people, but I don't think that when I entered the space that I would have imagined so much is going to change so quickly and without a lot of certainty, at a time where I don't think we're ready for it. So we get invited each year to be a little bit more provocative than most, to be the voice of the student. What they have to say is important. You just heard some of what they had to say. Who you are is important to them, and what you do and what you choose to invest in will make a difference in their lives and the lives of the rest of this country and our economy. So we love the opportunity. I want to thank everybody for coming today and giving us the chance. So as you see, I have no notes. So I'm going to speak from the presentation. This is an open presentation. If you have questions, ask them. If you disagree, make your case. This is about continuing the dialogue that Chegg tries to bring every year to this discussion, which is a greater recognition that the student is changing, that every other industry has changed because of technology, because we're not moving fast enough. And I believe, based on the research that we've done and being in this industry now for 6 years, that we've now hit the inflection point and there is no going back. We imagined it, but we're here. So we're posing the question, not is higher ed a bubble? We're posing the question, is the bubble about to burst? Because we believe it is a bubble. So let's explore that together. So what is a bubble? It's a good or fortunate situation that is isolated from reality or unlikely to last. Have we had bubbles? Well, we all heard in the 17th century about the tulip bubble when tulips were more expensive than a house, which in Silicon Valley is nearly impossible. But and we all know what happens. You can now buy 10 tulips for $5 at any Korean grocer in New York City. How many of you remember the internet bubble of 2000, 2001? Right? Remember that little puppet? Pets.com, in the Macy's Day Parade. That should have been a sign of the bubble. $5 trillion lost overnight because expectations were these new companies would grow faster than any other companies in history. They'd be more profitable than every other company in history. They would put everybody out of business. They had no competitors. The traditional companies were too slow. It was fueled by a narrative. And one day somebody said, well, maybe not. And then the whole thing collapsed under its own weight and had to be rebuilt, which is the modern internet, which is not in a bubble at the moment. And then how many of you suffered from the 2008 housing crisis? So see if some of these characteristics sound familiar to any of you. Prices of houses keep going up. Prices of schools keep going up. The American dream is predicated on home ownership. Loans kept going up to match the prices of houses. You didn't have to have any credentials to get a loan. You could put as little as 10% down. Did you all see The Big Short? If you haven't, see it. If for no other reason to watch Selena Gomez explain some of the financial information. My favorite part of the movie. I understood nothing else. But we all should have seen it coming, but nobody did because nobody wanted to believe. So think about colleges. Think about tuitions going up, right? Is college a bubble? It's been growing at 7.3% a year in terms of the cost of tuition every single year, faster than any other index. Faster than the ones that have already had their bubbles burst. It's outpacing the price of housing, medical care, and the CPI for decades now. And worse than that, it's actually gotten more, growing faster than it's ever been in terms of a percentage versus the other players. So if you look at the year, because it's important, somewhere right around the housing bubble, the price of college right before, but is sustained through, continues to go up. Bubbles behave in that way, where you think you can just keep taking the prices up. What is it fueled by? It's fueled by this belief that higher education is the ticket to the American dream. Remember we talked about home ownership and car ownership earlier as being tickets to the American dream? Now we're talking about college being the ticket to the American dream. So at the same time that the housing crisis hit, and at the same time that prices began to even grow faster than they had already been growing when they were already growing fast, the number of students that enrolled in college went up. Now, a lot of that was because junior colleges went up, because people couldn't get jobs. Are these signs of a bubble? Prices going up, demand going up, belief that it's the American dream? Even the President of the United States has gone out of his way to make the point that a college degree is the surest ticket to the middle class. It's the key to getting a great job or a good job that pays a good income and ensures that you're always employable. One, do we believe that, first of all, it ensures that you're always employable right now? No. In fact, you'll see later that 40% of all college students get a job that they don't think required a four-year college degree. So what's interesting is this is a UCLA study that they've been doing forever that shows the two, number one and number two reason that students claim they go to college. To get a general education, which is what professors love to hear, and to get a better job. Again, I point you to 2010. Higher prices than ever before, more demand than ever before, but the need for it to get you a better job became even more important. It was always number one, but it now started to distance itself where it's close to 90% of students say it's the primary reason they go to college. So the American dream, the President of the United States, the momentum's going up. What happens? Does this look like the American dream to any of you? 41% drop out of college. 45% say that they have a job that didn't require a four-year degree. I said this before, I'll say it again. Welcome to the barista generation. How many of your baristas graduated college? I know almost all of mine have, because every time I wear a Chegg shirt, they thank me. I don't get any free tea, but they still thank me. This should startle you. The average debt, $35,000. But hey, it's the American dream, right? You get out, you can pay a lot, just like the houses. Your house price will always go up. It'll always go up in value. College doesn't matter how much it costs. Just keep borrowing. It'll always go up in value. Oops, look at the next statistic. 43% are in default or behind on federal student loans. I ask you, bubble or not a bubble? American dream or American nightmare? But beyond outcomes and beyond price, in order for a bubble to sustain itself, there needs to be the greater fool theory. The Ponzi scheme requires more people to come in. Ask Mr. Madoff. Unfortunately, the mathematical demographics of the United States is an aging culture, which means there are fewer and fewer people to come after. So now we're at a point where fewer people are applying to college, not more. That means the fight for fewer and fewer students that could afford to pay fuller and fuller prices is going on. Who wins that? There are 4,400 colleges in this country. Who's going to win that battle when there's fewer students and all of them have to pay more? Not a lot. And if they are, they're going to be the top 200 schools. But it's not just the economics and it's not just the demographics. So I want to introduce you to the class of 2020. Why? Because this class, in our opinion, marks a turning point. Not only are there fewer of them, not only have prices reached the point where it is absolutely not possible, not only are loans defaulting at a higher rate than they've ever defaulted, and not only is the amount that they're borrowing higher than ever, but this class is different. Let me show you why. Did you know this class was born the same year Google was born? Now, as being the former chief operating officer of Yahoo, I dread that day. But nonetheless, that means that this generation has only known free access to information their whole life. That rectangle is the most important symbol in their life. When I grew up, it was that little bomb shelter thing. As I like to say, when I went to high school, the only guy with a tablet was Moses. 1 in 5 have ever used a landline. One of the funniest nights ever was I had to call my daughter at our house. It was in the summer, and she didn't answer her cell phone. Her sister didn't answer her cell phone, so we tried the house phone. It scared the shit out of her because she didn't know we had a house phone. But they send, on average, 40 texts a day. But they never use a phone. By the way, I've had to introduce my daughters, particularly the one that graduated, the 23-year-old, to this really cool new feature on the iPhone. It's called Voice. You can actually call your dad. Only 6% have actually done a homework assignment by hand. But this is the part that worries me as a father and as somebody in the industry. 70% of them will graduate with more than $40,000 in debt. Does that seem like it makes sense to take our most vulnerable, least prepared, and layer on this kind of debt? I think there's something like 4 million people in America over 40 that still carry their college debt. But their behavior is different too because their expectations are different. This is the emerging on-demand generation. All communication instantly available, instantly free. Right? SMS, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, all available, all free. You want content? Anybody remember TV Guide? Binge Watch, good friend of our company and an investor. This will be my one name drop. Ashton Kutcher is a good friend and a good investor in Chegg. He just has a new show on Netflix. I watched 3 episodes. My daughter has already binge watched the entire thing and has already critiqued it for him. I'm like, how did you have time to watch? She goes, it's just Netflix, just turn it on. There's no schedules, no time of day. Just put it on the laptop, watch it all night. This generation doesn't understand time of day. It doesn't matter to them. Transportation. Fewer millennials are owning cars than ever before in the history of this country. It's the Uber generation. The American dream no longer requires them to own a car. Why would they? When they can get one whenever they want within 5 minutes, they take them anywhere they want within 5 minutes. And by the way, they can also drive and make money. Music. I've said this in the past, I'll say it again. My generation grew up when people paid for music and water was free. It's fucked up. How dare these entitled children to believe that things should be accessible and affordable, right? The entire world is a click away. They've only ever had a smartphone, this generation. In fact, we're the only idiots that call it a smartphone. They just call it a phone. They don't know that a phone was dumb. In second grade, they were already watching online education videos. And the YouTube wormhole, you know what that is? I only learned that yesterday and then confirmed it with my kids. It means when you just sit there all day and it's an endless loop because they just keep bringing you more. It never shuts off. I'm like, okay, block YouTube. So they think everything is free or affordable and they think it's personalized and relevant for them. That isn't the way we grew up. It isn't the way college administrators grew up. It isn't the way professors grew up. But this is what this generation expects. So what do they get? They come to campus, they get assigned a roommate that they didn't get to pick. They're forced to get a food program to have them eat stuff they don't want, that they're never going to eat that much of it, right? They're forced to live in a dorm even though they can get an apartment for cheaper off campus. And they're forced to take a class at a certain time of day in subjects they don't care about because they're the ones that are available when the professor's ready to be available. This is an on-demand generation that does not understand that. That isn't how they grew up from day one. So their expectations, their actual life experience is different than those that are trying to provide for them. How do they feel about learning? Their expectations for learning are just like they are for everything else. If Netflix is $10 a month and it's available to me whenever I want to watch it, why isn't everything available to me? 62% use online tutorials already for school. And here are just 3 places that they go. Notice the big one in the middle. Right? 81% use a device in class, whether the professor knows it or not. In fact, so much so, and you just got to appreciate this, there was a news article last week that one of the major movie chains is considering letting you text during the movie now. Why? And see if this sounds like a bubble. Movies are scheduled at a specific time. They're in crowded locations that you have to drive to. Ticket prices have continued to go up, and the cost of food while you're there is outrageous. See if that sounds anything like college. So what happens? They stop going. And when they stop going, now you got to attract them back. So somebody says, hey, what if we give them what they want? Maybe they'll come. So that was just surprising, but relevant to what we're talking about. This part ought to scare the bejesus out of a traditional school. 49% of them, half of them today, believe it's just as effective to learn something online as it is offline. That number even shocked me, because 3 years ago it wasn't that. I still subscribe to the philosophy of, oh, in person must be better. They don't believe that, because almost nothing they've done has been in person. How many of you have Thanksgiving dinner with your kids? How many of you have Thanksgiving with your kids and everybody they're texting at the time that they're sitting at dinner? So our policy now is you can't use the phone or you need to FaceTime everybody because they need to join us for dinner. 75%, this is not a shocker, but it is important to understand, 75% prefer classes and programs at their pace, not at the specific time that it's assigned, not in the one way that you choose to teach it, but in the way they choose to learn it. Plus, the demographics of this country are very different economically than they were even 10 years ago, racially even than they were 10 years ago. So today, 13% of college students are African American and close to 30% are Hispanic, which match the demographics. So language is different, cultures are different, expectations are different. Have colleges supported any of those things? My answer is not that I've seen. By the way, most people would say, well, he's just talking about engineers, right? They're the ones who are willing to learn this stuff online. This wouldn't go across the other subjects, would it? So look at this, look at these numbers. Have you used online help for any of these subjects? Everything from foreign language to history to science to math. But most interesting is look at the difference in the demographics of the age groups of the colors. The blue are college students today. The yellow, that's weird, it's like an orange color at the bottom, but yellow on the screen. The yellow or orange, Chegg orange, they're high school students. So this generation that's coming up, the class of 2020, 90% of them have already used something to learn math online. It's not will they do it, they are doing it, they have done it because they've never known any other way to do anything. The internet has always been there for them. So they have come accustomed to this. So how prepared are you for the class of 2020? What do people do when they want to deny the existence of a bubble? Well, colleges are behaving like many other industries did. So let's talk about that a little bit. When the magazine business began to be under pressure, and I was the publisher of the #1 computer magazine in the country at the time the internet came up, so logically, computer magazine readers were going to be the first that went to the internet. So we saw what was going to happen to every other magazine years before everybody else did, because literally the audience went up like this online and the magazine subscribers went away. So what did we do, geniuses that we were? We raised the price of the subscription, we raised the price of the newsstand, and we raised the price of advertising because we were losing so much money from everybody who was no longer using them. Colleges, tuition going up. We also cut expenses. This was the smartest one I ever did. It turned out that if you took the page numbers off the magazine, you can save $15 million a year just by eliminating the page numbers. It turns out that made the index useless, but I didn't care. But I removed them. 15 million bucks, genius. Magazine's useless now, it's not good for the consumer. Go to page 52 for the Dell ad. 1, 2, 3. But I didn't care. Sound like colleges? They cut the number of professors, they cut the number of classes, they cut their investment in academics. But they raised the prices. Here, they obsess over rankings. This is one of my favorite devices that schools use on rankings now. You get extra points for having classes under 20. What? Did I surprise somebody? Hiccup? So what do colleges do now? They take a bunch of classes and they reduce the class size from 22 to 19. That just means that 3 students can't get in a class. Did that really improve the academics in that class? But they do it. So what happens to the student? Well, I know you have this major, and not that I'm bitching that my daughter's about to be a senior next year and she's getting none of her classes. But that's exactly what she told me. But because they reduced the size of the class for a ranking, fewer students can actually take the subject matter they're paying a fortune to go take. So to me, these are tendencies of a bubble. By the way, investing in sports will triple over the next 3 years because sports brings in revenue, right? In buildings, goes up. But in actual education, learning on campus, getting cut. So what ends up happening here, and this is the other favorite thing, University of Alabama is no longer the University of Alabama. It's the university of anybody that can afford to pay a higher price than the people that live in the state of Alabama, which is almost everybody. So Alabama has increasingly fewer people from their state going to the University of Alabama. That's not just limited to the University of Alabama. It's one of the top public schools in the country, UC Berkeley. Same thing. Why? Because if you can't raise the prices anymore, have fewer people that can't afford to pay, get more people that can pay. Bubble? Feels like a bubble. Foreign students. Foreign students, two birds with one stone. Diversity, they don't look like what we look like. They don't talk like we talk. So that's diversity, check that box. And second is they pay full price because their economies, the parents that are willing to pay 85% of their net worth to get their kids from China and India and other places to, quote unquote, the best schools in the country. So we've got huge foreign students coming, which is great, except 25% of them fail out because they're unprepared for the environment. There's not enough support staff to help them with language and culture and other things. So this is actually what's going on. The wagons are being circled. They're trying to preserve their top line and cut their costs. And these are all the signs that things are about to burst if they haven't already. And all this is happening when the dialogue out there in the ether is college worth the price? We have one side of the aisle not talking about college at all, because the last one that did that was Romney when he said maybe everybody shouldn't go to college. And now you have the Democrat side saying, well, maybe everybody should go to college and they shouldn't have to pay for it. Well, how's that going to work out? One of the many reasons why that won't ever happen, even if you believe in it, one of the many reasons that it won't ever happen is it would cost not only a fortune, but one of the dirtiest little secrets is college loans. The majority of them come from the government. $10 billion a year in profit for the US government to help us pay down the other debt that we have. That's why you can't get a law passed that lets them refinance government loans, because they don't want them paying less, because that means that we'll have even a bigger deficit. Bubble? Feels like a bubble. So we're asking prices going up, investment going down, not serving the needs of this generation, not working on curriculum that's relevant for jobs, crisis of confidence, people calling for this to be free. What happens if people suddenly believe tulips aren't more valuable than a home? What if somebody says, pets.com, it's a frickin' puppet. I could just go get dog food from anybody I want. What happens if people say, why would I take on $40,000 in debt when almost half of them can't pay it or are behind, and half of them can't get a job that they feel was worth paying for, and people are saying it shouldn't cost anything? Can the U.S. higher education system, I'm not talking about the top 200 colleges, they have so much in their endowment they'll survive anything. They're like cockroaches, right? You can blow them up, they'll still be there. Harvard degree. But what about the rest of them? And we're already seeing signs that colleges are going away, that colleges are closing. So if fewer people are coming up and fewer people have the income to pay for it, and those that don't have the income to pay for it aren't being taken by the schools because they need full pay students, how does the movie end here? Does that make sense? So let me sum this up and just say, bubbles burst when realities don't meet expectations. The expectation is that college is the key to the middle class. But what's actually happening? Students' costs are rising, cost cutting is at an all-time high, decreasing the size of the student pipeline, an increased dependency right now on full pay students. Curriculum has not been adapted in any way, shape, or form to match the modern workforce. exploding student debt, 1.3 trillion, highest default rate ever, crisis in public confidence. This is the moment we are today, all at a time where the class of 2020 is used to instant availability, 24/7, low cost, personalized, high quality, relevant, anytime they want on any device. Does that make sense? So this should scare the hell out of you. It scares the hell out of me. How does this get better? Well, we need to open this dialogue. But every company, every industry that's come back has leveraged technology to their advantage. It has made information more accessible more often at a lower price. It's used data and algorithms to make it more relevant and personalized to that particular student, whether it be at pace or language, or whether some students learn better from video or some students learn better from text or audio. It's not one size fits all. It's available on every device. It allows them to utilize it while they're working. They shouldn't have to come to residential. So we think that the cost of technology continues to decrease. So what's happened is every other industry that has been replaced by somebody leveraging technology to the advantage of the consumer. And all of you know that because all of you benefit from it. Whether you'd rather stay at an Airbnb versus an Uber because it's cheaper and more interesting, whether you'd rather use an Uber than own a car, whether you'd rather use your car as part of Get Around, whether you'd rather earn money as a tutor on Chegg. So if things have changed in every other industry, our belief from listening to the students, from looking at the data, is that this is the inflection point. If we don't begin to change now, 10 years from now, it's possible that 25 to 50% of the institutions that we know, and again, not the famous names, they got more money than anybody, but the ones that aren't famous, the ones that have to serve those that can't pay full pay, they may not be here. So I know that's a depressing message to end on, but here's the bright side. I lost 30 pounds this year. How do I look? So thank you very much. Questions? I believe we have time for questions if anybody has them. Or if anybody wants to pay $5 for water, you're welcome to go outside, but I'll be playing music for free. I've got Adele's CD if you want to commiserate with me. There are questions. Go ahead.
Just back on Selena Gomez for a second.
Seems reasonable.
The big bubbles you mentioned all had an extreme leverage element. Is there that kind of extreme leverage that would really cause a collapse?
So the question is, all these other bubbles had extreme leverage. The housing market had extreme leverage, but yeah, the leverage is the college loans, right? There's 1.3, it's bigger than credit card debt.
But are people trading securities based on?
Oh, I don't know that the financial markets will collapse. I'm talking about, but yes, they are trading those securities, but I'm talking about that we're going to have high unemployment of huge debt of our entire workforce. That is a bubble. What you may not know is lots of colleges are levered up in debt also. They borrowed money when it was cheap, and they have no sources of income. So there's another point of leverage. Yes?
Implied in all this was an assumption that because of all these problems, online education, online teaching is going to be inevitable and will help alleviate some of these problems. But a lot of other things have to happen too. Employers have to be willing to accept online certificates. People have to learn skills that don't always get taught. Their physical skills don't always get taught.
So the question here is, won't employers have to be agreeable to new kinds of degrees and certifications to accept people? So let me ask you a question. Where did you go to college? In India, right? 40% of my employees went to college in India. I don't have a clue what their colleges were like. I didn't care if they could do the job. So I would say to you, it's already happening in technology-based companies. So why wouldn't it happen in every other industry? The question that employers ask isn't where you went to school. There was an implication if you went to school at a certain place, you had skills. I'm saying after the top 200, I'm not sure that implication exists anymore. So the question is, are you capable of doing the job? And I think increasingly, are you a spreadsheet jockey? Do you understand how to query a database? Can you analyze data? Can you These are all things that are now, those are marketing and finance jobs. Those aren't engineering jobs. So the question is, can you think and can you do? And so I think that's already happened, particularly in tight job markets like Silicon Valley. It's very rarely do you care where somebody went to school. The question is, what are they capable of? And it started with coding, but it's gone on to all sorts of other things. So I believe that that's already begun to happen. I think it's just that people just haven't accepted that that's the case. So yes, they do have to, but I will tell you, the employers that search our database, they're not searching by college. They're searching by subject, because we have the biggest internship database, and which is turning into a job database. What they want to know is, can the graduate do the job? And there's no certainty that if they went to a certain school that they can do the job. So yes, I agree with you, but I believe it's already beginning to happen. Other questions? Yes? If you had global economy factor? Well, as somebody who went to Stanford and lives in China, or Hong Kong, you probably know that better than anybody. So right now, more and more Chinese families, as an example, are paying a fortune to send their kids outside of China because there aren't enough schools in China. And then they're coming back, and the question is, can they get jobs in China? Because we don't keep them here in the United States. So that's part of a bubble as well. Now, other countries already have a class system when it comes to education. So I don't really know that I know the answer to that. What I do know is we increasingly, with our tutors business, our homework help business, see more and more students from around the world coming to our site to learn things. So I think it's inevitable. There was a question behind you? Yep. Yeah, I think that is ambitious, and I think it's accurate. And given my experience on multiple college boards, dealing with tenured professors who think that their role is not to prepare you for employment, that we have structural issues. And so I think the reason you can do it at state schools or community colleges is because there's different rules and roles. And I think you're seeing it first at community colleges, but sadly only 15% of people who go to community college get a degree in anything. So I do believe that if colleges, and it's part of this, you say, part of this is if you modernize your curriculum to give people not only the critical thinking but tangible skills, then I think you've got much more value in the education. And I don't think it costs a lot more because you can actually do most of those tangible skills online or at the Career Services Center. But by the way, because you don't get any points on college rankings for investing in your Career Services Center, they don't generally do it. Only 2% of students, again, not the top 200, claim they ever got a job out of their college Career Services Center, and less than 40% have gone to visit. That's the rest of America, not the Ivies. So time for one more question? Yes? So what do I see? I'm not sure it matters what I see. I see it through the eyes of a father. I have two daughters, 23 and 20. They both went to liberal arts schools, but I've been extraordinarily fortunate to have lived the American dream, which means I could afford to have them go to college and not graduate with debt. And so my eyes are a very small percentage of the population, and I've come to just appreciate that. What I do think is there is value to social relationships, to working in teams, to actually have the discipline of having to show up all the time, to not always have to be self-motivated for this generation. So I'm not calling for the end of college. I'm just telling you if we continue to go on, that's what's going to happen. I'm saying to you that this generation isn't going to appreciate graduating with extraordinary debt with no particular skills to get them a job in an inconvenient location, having to eat food that they don't want to eat and live in housing they don't want to live in, paying more than they otherwise would have to do it because it props up a system that isn't helping them. That's what I'm speaking to. I mean, even little things, like if you ever go to a college, the average cash machine takes $3.50 when you get your cash out. Well, the average college kid takes out 20 bucks, right? That's called The Sopranos. So anyway, I've got 3 minutes left, so there's one more question. I'm happy to take it.
What role do you see in corporations educating and employing people for the workforce going forward?
So I think increasingly that it's upon the employer to choose to make the investment in their own employees, because they're not necessarily seeing recent graduates as having those skills, and it's cheaper to do a lynda.com or the stuff that Chegg's going to work on, or General Assembly or Flatiron or any of these great companies, Pluralsight, where those are all, not all online, but mostly online, available, because corporations can pay a seat license for it. And it's better to train somebody that you already like and is smart and cultural fits and how to do a spreadsheet. But that's an increased cost for corporations when they're under tremendous pressure for more profits. So who knows?
Do you see them training recruits and people that they want to bring in?
I don't see that happening because I don't think they have the budgets for it right now. I think we've seen tremendous cost cutting. I think the top firms will always have training programs, but we've got to get ourselves out of the 1% economy and realize what the rest of the world is like. And with that good news, I wish you a great day. Thank you, Mike and Deborah, for GSV, and thank you all for attending.